Fox News alert: for the second time in 3 days, the United Nations has had to postpone action on a controversial new gun control treaty that would regulate firearms across the globe. That treaty would create international standards for importing and exporting conventional weapons. It is backed by President Obama, which is a reversal from the policies under President Bush. But our next guest says that these UN rules could fundamentally change American gun laws and threaten our Second Amendment rights right here at home. Joining us live is the Executive Vice President and CEO of the National Rifle Association, Wayne Lapierre. Wayne, welcome back to the program.
Thanks, Megan. Thanks for having me.
All right, so this is what the UN and the human rights groups say. They say, look, there are no global treaties that restrict the sale of conventional arms, that the entire world is dealing in small arms, that there is nothing preventing these guns from getting into the hands of very bad people in these other nations outside of the United States. And that's all they're trying to regulate, the global sales, not to restrict Second Amendment rights here in America. What say you?
Well, we've continually tried to exempt civilian firearms in the United States. They refuse to do any of that.
What do you mean? What do you mean by that? We've tried to
have them exempt all civilian firearms.
So write that into the treaty.
Rifles, shotguns, handguns, they refuse to do any of that. I mean, the reason this is such a bunch of nonsense, Syria, thousands of people are dying right now. The UN's spending 6 weeks this summer on gun control. I mean, the fact is, the UN doesn't protect people. It doesn't save the innocent. I mean, you could stack to the ceiling the bodies of the innocent 1,000 times over that the UN has failed to protect. The dead people don't get to vote on this UN treaty, and Americans don't want to be added to that pile of dead people that have been left defenseless by the UN policies.
They seem to genuinely believe that it is the guns that are to blame for this violence that we're seeing in some of these downtrodden nations, and that if we can just control the flow of guns, we will somehow stem the violence.
Yeah, they say nothing about arresting, prosecuting, incarcerating violent criminals. They say nothing about how oppressed innocent people can be freed from tyrants and dictators. I mean, the UN, it's this utopian philosophy. Let's ban all guns and there'll be no human rights abuses. There'll be no terrorism. There'll be no criminals. It's all utopian nonsense. I mean, the UN gun control plan is the most extreme imaginable. It says to people in the United States, turn over your personal protection and your firearms to the government, and the government will protect you. It's the most extreme.
It does? Wait, because the president, the administration has said, we support this, but it doesn't infringe on our Second Amendment rights here at home. I mean, as a practical matter, you tell us, what would it, like to gun owners watching this program right now, what would it mean for them?
Right now, it would affect every handgun, rifle, and shotgun American citizens own.
How?
It's the most extreme imaginable. It sets up global agencies, data centers, tracking, monitoring, surveillance, supervision. It institutionalizes the whole UN gun plan within the bureaucracy of the United Nations with a permanent funding mechanism. And included in this gun plan is implementation legislation that they are going to press for the United States to adopt. And the NRA, we already have 58 senators that we've worked with to say they'll oppose this, a majority of the House of Representatives. And the NRA's position is we are not going to let this be adopted in the United States. And I hope every American citizen joins the NRA as an act of defiance to this UN plan.
But they are, when they talk about promoting this, they talk about how it's about the global arms sales. And if anything, they'll just be regulating the weapons manufacturers here in the United States to be more open and transparent about to whom they're selling outside of the country, not so much domestic sales.
That's simple. They may say that. It's simply not the case. They have consistently refused to exempt rifles, shotguns, handguns owned by American citizens. They won't even exempt sporting firearms. The fact is, this affects every single firearm. That's their philosophy. The government gets the guns, not individual citizens. And the ironic thing, Megan, you look at most of the killing that's been done over the years, it's been done by governments in that club. Russia, Soviet Union, China, North Vietnam, Korea, Uganda, Rwanda. I mean, go down the list.
Do they support this UN treaty?
Yeah, I mean, the world's worst human rights abusers are voting for this treaty. The last time Iran offered the proposal, Syria's going to vote for it. Cuba's going to vote for it. I mean, it's such
Who's going to enforce it? I mean, obviously it's not, I mean, the odds of it being approved here in the United States, not so good, right?
Well, it's going to sit out there for years like the Kyoto Treaty. They'll have a permanent funding mechanism to try to implement this. They're already scheduling conferences up to 2018, most of which are being paid for by UN taxpayers. This is a bunch of nonsense. The American needs to know how bad it is. And I'll tell you this. if the glass breaks in your house at 2 a.m., the baby blue helmets of the UN are not going to save anybody. There's not a government or an authority on the planet that's going to save a citizen if they're in that situation. What will save them is the American constitutional right to own a firearm.
I always say guns are just like lawyers. Everybody dislikes them until they need one, right? Not everybody, but a lot of people.
It's a great freedom. And when the UN attacks us, they're debating all of our founding fathers that understood what this freedom means to Americans.
So, Wayne, are they going to hear you out one of these days? You will get your chance to testify before the UN on this?
I'm going to go in and tell them to keep your hands off our freedoms in the U.S. This plan weakens our rights, cheapens our sovereignty, and enables every tyrant, thug, and criminal and evil government around the world.
Well, we'll see if Syria gets up and walks out on you. Wayne.
They're going to vote for it.
Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, Megan.